Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, y'all. I'm your host, Bull. Today we're going to be talking about Adidas, the three stripes versus Nike, and who should be Tennessee sponsor in 2026. I've seen on social media a lot of all fans are passionate. It feels like most of all fans want Nike. I've seen some VFLs come out saying that they want Nike. I'm just all about, who's going to give us the best quality, which I feel like for both of the brands, it's going to be pretty much equal quality, but who's going to help us win the most? I'm talking about revenue sharing. I'm talking about NIL. I'm talking about the future of all of our teams. We need to be set up because these are typically some pretty long contracts. So we got to do it right. I think that Danny White is in a situation, y'all, where he can really change the market. He can set the tone. He can be very forward thinking and put us in a great spot. I think that this could be huge for us. And, we could definitely get our teams on a totally different level if things play out the way that I feel like they might play out. But with all that being said, y'all please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, what I want to do is show you this chart here. And this is just showing you how Tennessee's current contract with Nike stacks up next to the top 5 programs that Nike is sponsoring. Okay, so obviously we signed this contract back in 2014 or 2014, 2015, something like that. But we didn't have, really good programs. We didn't have really good teams. So we didn't have very much leverage. So if you're looking at the annual cash value, it's very, very low. But Nike is Nike's a company that everybody wants to be sponsored by. They sponsor a ton of teams. So they can lowball you for sure because they know that everybody wants them. Really, I mean, thinking about it, like you could look at Michigan. Michigan was with a totally different company prior to signing with Nike, and they couldn't wait to get to Nike. Auburn, they were with Under Armour. They could not wait to get to Nike. I think that they might have took a pay cut to go to Nike. But we took a pay cut to come to Nike. But most people do that. It's because the brand does mean something. I know that some folks think that it just doesn't mean that much, but it does to these kids. It does to the high school players. I talked to my nephew Bray, who's on this channel sometimes, and he even said, obviously he was teammates with 2 of our freshman Vols last year. He knows several players in different sports and all of that. But he said, yeah, players still care about the company that is sponsoring these institutions. Now, it is going to be different because there's money involved and you can get paid real money. So if a school is going to pay you some more money to go and wear some stuff that you might not like, then you're probably going to do it. But at the same time, if everything's equal, then yeah, he said that most of the players would rather have Nike or Jordan. Now, everyone's going to be different. I don't want to make it seem like every single player that's coming from high school is going to want Nike or Jordan. Some players just won't care. But for the most part, I sincerely do believe that they would love to be sponsored by Nike and especially Jordan. So either way, y'all can see how the cash value looks for the other programs that Nike is sponsoring. I think that Tennessee can get up there. Probably somewhere around $8 to $9 million if we stick with Nike moving forward. I think that we should probably be able to get into that ballpark because looking at Alabama, they're at about, 8 million. Their contract's almost over with. So, that was like 8 years ago. So their contract's almost over with. Either way, I think that at this point, Tennessee's probably worth at least $8.5 million to Nike. Now, looking at the annual merchandise value, Tennessee did a pretty good job here because we're talking about $4.5 million that's going to go towards the merchandise that our players get. That's just the clothes and the shoes and all that type of stuff that they get. So that's a good number. The only team that's higher than us on this list is going to be Michigan. They got $5.1 million. Now, you're going to see Michigan twice on this list because they're with Nike, but they're also with Jordan. I think that they did a great job with their contract. Now, I'm going to start to scroll through here. Y'all can also see what the NIL value is, and this is just based off of how the contracts are written. You can see that it's not specified with Nike. It's not going to be specified with Jordan either. But once you get to these 3 stripes, you can see that they do have some NIL stuff just kind of outlined inside of their contract details. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But first, I want to talk about how this whole move could impact revenue sharing, how it's going to impact NIL, because a lot of folks think that we just need to sign the biggest contract possible so that we can put some more money, to our players' pockets. But revenue sharing is capped at 22% or $20.5 million, whichever one comes first of your, annual earnings from all of your sports programs. So Tennessee made over $200 million last year. And, so that puts us over the cap of $20.5 million. So that's not even going to be 10% of the revenue that we made off of our sports is going to get shared with our players. So, it's not even at 22%. It's going to get capped. So the revenue sharing part of it, it's not going to come from this, right? Just because we're already over that cap. That's how most Power 4 programs are. So it doesn't matter how much the contract is from that standpoint. It's not going to add any more money to our players' pockets from a revenue sharing standpoint. Now, as far as the NIL part of it goes, the money, like the actual cash value that y'all are seeing here, can we take that money and use it towards NIL? No, we can't. So the institutions themselves cannot fund NIL. It's got to come from one of these brands, or it's got to come from donors. So that's another part of it that is just not happening. It's just not feasible. So it doesn't really matter from that standpoint what the cash value is. If the cash value is going to the university, that's really not going to help. Really, the extra cash value that does come from these contracts that goes to the schools is just going to more than likely pay for the sports that can't pay for themselves. That's pretty much all that it's going to do. But it's not going to add or take away from the money that the players themselves are getting. And that's going to be the biggest thing to help us moving forward to be better and things like that. Now, what I do think can happen is maybe Danny White can talk to any of these companies and say, hey, we would like for you to allocate funds inside of the contract language directly to our NIL. So we're seeing that, again, Jordan's not doing that. Nike's not doing that. Doesn't mean that they're not spending NIL funds and sponsoring players, because they do. But theirs is on a more like targeted basis where they're going to be targeting individual players, and they're not really using that to, fund these actual programs, NIL. So looking at what the three stripes are doing, they do have the NIL language in their contracts. Now, it's a little bit different here. The language that they have, it's really, making the players kind of like a brand ambassador, which you're not going to make too much money from that. What it means is that the players can go to their social media with the link, and they can have a post with a video, with a picture, whatever, and saying, hey, I've got on this item of clothes inside of this video or on this post. If you like this, then click on this link and you can go purchase it, straight from the website. Now, if people do purchase from that website, then the players can get 10 to 20% of that purchase. So talking about, what the three stripes purchases look like online, it's averaging $60. So 10% of 60 would be $6. 20% of it would be $12. So you can already see how it would take so many people to not just view your page, but to obviously sign up or to like click the link and then to buy something for you to make any money at all. You're not going to make too much money doing it that way. And the people who do make plenty of money from it already have a big enough following and a big enough brand on their own that they could have just signed a daggum contract for, $400,000 or $500,000 or something like that, and not had to do all the extra work. That's something else that the players don't want to have to do all that daggum work. Like, I'm just being honest with you. And I think that most of us understand it. Like, there's too many programs that will not make the players have to jump through hoops and hurdles to get paid, that we can't do it, because that'll be the reason that they choose that school over ours. That's just how things are. And I'm not necessarily mad at it. I think that the players need to get paid. I think that they need to get theirs. So either way, obviously, they will still have some major sponsorship deals. I think that they do a great job of sponsoring, like women's sports, for sure. Some of the smaller sports, that's huge for, I think, everybody, but also for Tennessee. If we want to be that everything school, it's good to have some extra funds that can get allocated to, maybe some of like the smaller sports that don't generate as much money. So that could be a very positive thing from Tennessee's standpoint. But I think that the biggest thing that we need to be focusing on is who can fund NIL for the big two. Okay, football number one. That's the big one. That's trumps absolutely everything. And then basketball would be number two. You've got to have the funds to get in the players that you need that will go on to the next level. And then, in turn, they will also help you win championships, because winning cures everything. If we can get to a point where, we're able to allocate enough funds and we can outbid most other programs, and then we've got, some other good things going on with our school as well that people want to choose us, then all of a sudden, man, we're going to be fine. Like, we're going to be on top. And I think that we can stay on top with how things are kind of panning out, because, look, I want to talk about this cash value thing, right? What I'm talking about here, y'all, is instead of that cash value, if I'm Danny White, I say make that NIL value. See what I'm saying? So I feel like Tennessee could get anywhere from 10 to probably, or I'm gonna say 15 to probably $20 million if we go with the three stripes, which is a good amount of money, because you're looking at Kansas, that's the highest paid program for them right now at about $9 million. They want us to be the flagship. So they got to make us, they really got to pay us. And I think that we need to be, obviously, if we're going to play hardball here, we could talk about these Buckeyes who's getting $17 million on a contract that they signed, I don't know when. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't here very recently, so we got to get paid more than them on a annual basis. But I think that we could get in that ballpark let's put it all towards NIL. Now, Danny White might want to save some money for the other sports and say, look, we're going to hold on to maybe like a couple $1 million to make sure that we can keep these other sports going. That's fine too. But this is how I'm looking at it. Whoever we can get to allocate the most funds to the NIL that's going directly to our players' pockets, that's who we got to go with. And if it's close, like let's just say, we talked about us with Nike, maybe at about $8 million. What if it's only about $10 million coming from the stripes? Okay. I think that you got to go with Nike and you got to try to get Jordan out of the deal, because I feel like having Jordan as your sponsor is worth that $1 million annually, because you're going to save it, because some players will come to your program, especially if you have Jordan. Because let me scroll on down to Jordan, and y'all can see that Jordan really isn't paying. Like, the cash value with Jordan is not high outside of Michigan. And, we already talked about that. That's because Nike's paying their, Nike's paying that part of it. But they've got, I don't know if it's all their programs or if it's like in Oklahoma where it's just like 3 or 4 of their programs. So like the 3 or 4 biggest programs will get the Jordan logo on their jerseys. But that's really all that you need. Like, that's going to be, I think that makes a huge difference. And that's why they can lowball folks. Now you can see that, like with the Bruins, their merchandise value is crazy. $7 million to almost $10 million. That's a lot of Jordans. But yes, that puts you in a totally different spot, because Jordan's only sponsoring like a total of 8 different programs, right? So you would be in a different category, and that'll get you into some rooms that you might not have been able to get into prior to it. So that's the way that I'm looking at it. But it's got to be about getting the players paid and a lot less about getting the actual institution paid. So I'm hoping that that's how Danny White looks at it. If he does, he will be a daggum hero. For me, he kind of already is a hero, but I think that will really take him over the top, especially if you're doing some like shorter contract terms, because if you come all back up looking at Alabama, their contract, they're going to have a new one coming up here soon. So if Tennessee can get the NIL actually put into our contract language, of course, everyone's going to follow suit. And Alabama's probably going to get more than Tennessee got. Maybe. You know what I'm saying? Possibly. We'll see what Nike want to do that or not. But either way, this is a situation where you don't want to get caught up in like a really long-term deal where you're stuck with the money that you're getting for your NIL funds, because the market is only going to go up. So you might do some shorter-term deals, maybe 5 to 6 years or something like that, maybe even less than that. And if it's going to be a long-term deal, then you've got to be able to, again, with Danny White being forward-thinking, either have some language in there that you can get out of the contract or something like that pretty soon, or, look at the numbers here pretty soon, or you're going to have to really ask them for a bunch of money on an annual basis. You might have to say, look, man, we need 25, maybe $30 million annually. I don't know if we can get up to that, but I'm just saying, I think that that's how this whole deal is about to start looking, y'all. I think that it's going to be a lot more money, thrown into that NIL pot for all of our players, okay? And if that happens, obviously, man, like you're talking about going out and getting that number 1 quarterback, or that number 1 wide receiver, that number 1 edge rusher, or that number 1 offensive tackle, you can do that now because you've got the extra funds that we need. Tennessee wasn't that far off, but shoot, $10, $15 million, that ain't gonna do nothing but help. So those are my thoughts, man. Y'all please share yours with me down in the comment section. And as always, y'all please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks, peace. Thanks for watching, and please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, because that keeps us growing inside of the YouTube algorithm. And if you did like this video, here's another one that you might also enjoy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.